All right, you're welcome back to the show. Overcoming poverty is not a gesture of charity, but a gesture of fundamental human rights, talking about right to dignity and right to decent life. All right, today we'll be looking at the topic, ending the poverty trap in Nigeria. Of course, Nigeria Poverty Trap report projected that the country will have the largest number of extremely poor people in the world by the year 2030. Of course, we are already experiencing it now because according to NBC statistics, about 63% of Nigerians' population are living in extreme poverty. So that's why it's important that we look at how we can end this poverty trap in Nigeria. We have with us in the studios this morning Ichie Mike Odumodu. Ichie Mike Odumodu is a financial consultant. Good morning and welcome to the show.
Good morning and thank you. Good morning, our viewers all over the world.
We also have Chukwunonso Ekesiobi. He is a lecturer with the Department of Economics, Chukwuemeka Odumegwu University, Iwaria. You're welcome to your sorry for that. You're welcome to the show.
Nice to be here again.
Okay. Now let's start with the report from Nigeria Bureau of Statistics that about 63% of the Nigerian population are extremely poor. Let's put it that way. They are extremely poor. And also Nigeria has been regarded as one of the countries all over the world with the highest percentage of poor citizens. Now, looking at Nigeria, that is so blessed with resources, natural resources, and then human capital and all that. How did we even get to this point? How did we get to the point that we are now talking about 63% of our population living in extreme poverty?
I think I would like us to look back a bit so it can guide what we are here to discuss. Because some time ago, incidentally, myself and Chief were here discussing the then poverty assessment report by the World Bank.
Yes.
That put about 95.1 million persons living in poverty. And the federal government, as at that time, did not take it lightly. In fact, there was this back and forth, this exchanges that no, the federal government trying to refute the data of the World Bank, saying that no, that can the outsider tell us more of what is happening within our home? And they started beating their chest that the federal government has been doing a lot of things, intervention, school feeding, so on and so forth. This 5,000 payment to vulnerable persons and so on and so forth, that in fact they have gone a long way in trying to lift 100 million persons out of poverty. Now we have come here again. This time around, the mood is not as it was the other time, because the report was more or less spearheaded by a government parastatal, a government body, that is National Bureau of Statistics, in collaboration with the, I think, UNICEF, UNDP and co. But they are the driver's seat. Now this report, the multidimensional poverty report that came out and said that we have about 133 million persons living in multidimensional poverty. And we now ask, the foreigner told you 95. Now your own body is telling you 133. I think they should better go and accept that one of 95 before.
Well, some people are even agreeing that this figure itself is not even correct.
Yes.
We have more people living.
Poverty, like if you use the general, poverty benchmark of living above, 1.9 or $2 a day, with what is happening with our exchange rate, that should give you about 1,500 or thereabout, depending on the exchange rates you are using. So we now ask, as we are, what then do we now accept that yes, we have a challenge, we have a will I say, poverty crisis on our hands. Since we cannot deny the National Bureau of Statistics report, is it now time we accept it? But unfortunately, I don't think that is going to happen, because the same federal government is now pointing the blame at something else. For instance, saying that, in fact, state governments are responsible. Yes, it is a collective responsibility, but you are the head at that level. So the National Bureau of Statistics does not report for state governments, it reports for the federal government. And you are responsible for every Nigerian, irrespective of state. So it is only telling us the danger that is ahead as far as the issue of poverty is concerned. And why I'm concerned the most about this multidimensional poverty is that, the other time, what the World Bank just looked at was poverty, generally, aggregate poverty. But if you look beyond these aggregates, you will find that the devil is in the detail of what we are overlooking. And that is what multidimensional poverty is trying to tell you. What is happening to poverty across various dimensions and across various sectors. Education, access to education, how many people are going to school, how many people are out of school. We have about 20 million out of school children, and with what is going on security-wise, we were discussing off air now about how people are not going to school on Mondays here, and in some places where schools have been shut down entirely for fear of kidnap for ransom, and so on and so forth. Then even the cost of going to school. So we are saying that we have about 20 million out of school children. The worsening poverty situation will add to that number of out of school children. I don't want to go deeper into education.
Standard of living,
look at strikes and what are we going and that one has not been settled though. We are still talking about 8 months, half months, and so on and so forth. You mentioned health, the same thing. Anybody, in fact, starting from our leadership, I knew that when we left, like my friend used to tell me, when he knew that this country is hopeless, was when we had COVID, that deprived both the rich and the poor access to health, especially those who travel abroad normally, thinking that they will have a second thought and say, okay, let us fix health in case something like this happens. We didn't do that. So what are you expecting? The number of persons living with HIV, the number of persons, emerging diseases like renal failure, kidney that is becoming more rampant, cancer, and so on and so forth. Health. You talked of standard of living. If we use a monometric measure of standard of living, you look at people's income. What is happening? Look, the minimum wage of today, which most people are yet to even pay, 30,000, cannot even buy you a bag of rice. So what then do you expect people to look at? So, and even on top of that minimum wage, we still have situations where, especially in states, that's where I agree with federal government to some extent. You have states where they are still owing salaries running into 10 months and above. When you owe somebody, when you owe a person, a head of a household, that kind of, for that long, how do you expect them to cope? If you mention standard of living again, look at the kind of food we are eating. Can people still afford 3 square meals again? Maybe 2 or 1, depending. And you look at the quality of what they are eating. Is it contain the number of calories and number of nutrients that it should contain? If not, it will affect other things now. The other time I mentioned something about stunting and the rest. Look at what, when people don't feed well, it affects every other thing they do. And if you look at, in fact, all these things are linked to a lot of things, because another way of looking at multidimensional poverty is food poverty. Yes, because prices are rising. If you go to the market, like we discussed off air again, I said earlier that a 5,000 naira cannot cook, cannot make a decent pot of soup now. So, you look at food poverty, you look at what is happening to energy. How many people have access to energy? And when people don't have access to energy, the way tariffs are increasing silently now. And again, look at what energy is doing to us in terms of fuel. because we have been quiet and fuel has risen to over. I bought yesterday 240. So this thing affects the entire distribution chain of everything we do, food, goods and services and the rest. So everything will increase. Meanwhile, your source of income has not increased though. So I feel that this multidimensional poverty report has really shaken everybody, especially coming from our own self. So it's high time we look at ourselves and tell ourselves the hard truth.
Okay. All right, Ishe, let's come to you. Now, we know that not just Nigeria alone, a country like Ghana and then UK that just entered into recession. Should we say that this is like a worldwide problem, not just for Nigeria, considering the fact that one of the factors they gave as the thing that triggered this poverty is the COVID-19 crisis? Of course, it affected a whole lot of economies.
Thank you very much. Yeah. The Nigerian situation is an entirely different one. Yes, let me just go to UK. Like when we talk about UK, if UK enters into recession, they will solve it within a very short time, and they will come out of that recession. Just like Ghana. Ghana will come out of it within a very short time. But in the case of Nigeria, is that we have been in this problem over the years. It's not something that started today. But while people, some of these institutions are crying, is that it is now getting out of hands. And the world is wondering how Nigerians are surviving. Because like the salary we talked about, 30 naira per month, 30,000 per month. You see that some people don't end up to that. Majority of is people that work with the government that is talking about 30,000. There are people that work in some private enterprises that are not taking up to 20,000, and they are still living within the society. So, Nigerian case is a peculiar case. Even though COVID-19 affected almost all the countries, all over the world, the UK having their own issue, but they will certainly come out of it. And that was why even the Prime Minister resigned the few months ago. So they will put their country in order. But in the case of Nigeria, I think government at all levels have failed Nigerians. Over time, it's not something that started today, I said before. Both the federal government, state government, local governments, they have failed us because their major issue, their major concern is about, squandermania. It's about eating this money. When they do the budget, they will eat the budget. They will go and stack money. They hoard money.
They will pad the budget first.
After padding the budget, in the course of the running the cost of the budget, you see people packing money. They say do this project and do the other project. None of these projects will be done, and at the end of the year, the entire budget will be fizzled out. We begin to wonder what happened to this project. What happened to this the money? So that is the problem we are having, and nobody cares, or the government does not care. They keep doing it over the years. They keep doing it over the years. This problem started so many years back. From 1970, I'm sure from 1979 to today, we have not had any good time in Nigeria. It has been economy going down from one government to the other, going down from one government to the other. Government leaving what they should do, So by the time government starts to do what they should do, for instance, when we look at the National Assembly, you look at the Senate is there, the House is there. Once you stay there 4 years, you have become a very rich person in Nigeria. You are moving around with siren. When we are talking that school children, many of the school children are out of school. These people who under 4 years, You don't have maybe the person was relatively okay, but go in there makes that person a billionaire or trillionaire, moving around with siren and dishing money everywhere. So I think Nigeria has not the government has not done what it should do at all levels. The state governments should play their role. People should be employed. These governments are picking money. And sometimes they don't tell us this is how, when you do the budget, they don't, they don't follow the budget as well in the state level. Most of the states are eating the state allocation. They are eating the local government allocation. It makes a local government moribund. So the Nigerian government at all levels, I think they have a lot of roles to play, because when we begin to talk about that, it's something that people should not hear. And I am calling on the government at all levels to hurry up and do something. It's not a good idea that we are watching, the governments are watching the people dying. They are picking this money, packing it. Now that we are into currency exchange or rebranding, people are now bringing out money, going to dump in the bank. Within these 2 weeks or 3 weeks, you see the amount of money that has come out that wasn't in circulation before. So many billions have now come out into circulation. So I think government should know how to, handle this issue so that people will start having these problems. Because it's getting out of hands. People are dying. All right. People are suffocating.
Thank you for your submission. Now, talking about intervention so far, especially when we look at this present administration, I know they've come up with several interventions on how to eradicate poverty in our country. Now, so let's review the impact. Various social monetary policies that they've come out with, even the policy of saying that they're going to lift 100 million people out of poverty, and so many of them. And then we have a whole lot that have been going on in the country to see how we can arrest poverty. But we are still talking about it today. Is it that those policies or those interventions, they aren't good enough, or there are loopholes, there are gaps that still need to be addressed?
Well, when it comes to poverty alleviation interventions, it is not just this government. It dates back to as far back as, let us start with since our return to democracy. We've had the popular National Poverty Alleviation Program, which later became Eradication Program. Then some other types of interventions that have taken place up till today. In fact, this government here has, tried in one way or the other to play by number one, this their school feeding program. At least in terms of the educational aspect of multidimensional poverty. For those who, children going to school knowing that they will be fed, at least with one egg or a piece of egg and other food items that they can be given. That one can encourage them to come to school. It's a good one. But how is that thing being run? That's another problem. Has it been hijacked such that they get to school and they are not given the necessary, components that those interventions are supposed to cover? We've had a situation where I think we have a national, social register where they take into account the number of people in vulnerable groups that are given some stipends to just keep them alive. We've had what's this one they call this thing? Is it Empower?
Empower.
Yeah. Empower.
So yes. This other one, even creating the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs is also, an institutional, effort. And many other ways, in fact, even from the CBN side, the CBN has been doing a lot. The Anchor Borrowers Program, the interventions to fund small and medium scale enterprises, and so on and so forth. But for me, these efforts, no matter how laudable they are, the results we have seen, especially with this multidimensional poverty report, shows that while commendable, there's still a lot that are still, pending. And for me, I just call those ones sort of palliatives. Remember when we had COVID, you mentioned earlier that is it as a result of COVID or something, or is it peculiar something? Look, other countries had COVID, but in those countries, kind of packages, reliefs, households, because at least they know the number of households they have and everything. And I know people abroad that told me they received, paycheck during that period they were in lockdown. Here, they want the palliatives that were bought, they were stashed in various warehouses. We know how people were scrambling, falling over themselves to break into those warehouses to get what to eat. So I want to agree with Chief that it's not, yes, COVID was responsible for pushing about 5 million persons between 2000 to date into poverty, granted. But that's not really the point. The point is, what did you do when you saw that going, when you saw that happening? Other countries responded.
To bring them out.
Other countries responded. What did you do? So, like you also pointed out again, if we are to address this poverty situation, I think we need to go deeper. What we have been doing is just to dress the wound. The deeper one is to, have this kind of structural reforms. When I mean structural reforms that we rejig the country to make the country, more productive and, productive enough to empower people to do well for themselves. It's not just to giving them handouts. Like this thing they used to say, teach somebody how to fish instead of giving the person fish. No, we need to go beyond all these, minor interventions to something very robust. I was very impressed by a report released by this Institute for Governance and Economic Transformation, chaired by Professor Kingsley Mohalo. Oh. Yeah, they had a poverty report that just came out not too long ago, and inside that document has, both have been saying in the past about how to alleviate poverty and, innovative ideas that we can challenge the problems we're having today. So it's not as if we don't know what to do, but those reforms are reforms that will first and foremost start from leadership. The kind of leadership we have is leadership that exacerbates poverty instead of alleviating poverty. So it takes a good leader to know that, yes, this is what I need to do to deliver. It's not, playing to the gallery or just ignoring the people entirely. You heard when they said Liz Truss, the former UK Prime Minister, just resigned because here, can they try it? No, they will keep, basking in their inefficiency because of what the institutional failures that we had, because these people do not care. Even if you come up with the best of policies, if the people driving those policies are not ready, they don't have the political will to do so, those policies will not work. That's why I'm starting from the leadership, because we have a leadership poverty in Nigeria. So if we address that leadership poverty by allowing, our leadership recruitment process to change, we get people who have the interests of this country that had to come to drive this thing. But the same country will not allow it, because we are weaponizing poverty, so that on election day, when you give somebody 10,000, the person will say, come on, let me take this one first. And the problem still persists. So minus that leadership thing, you now talk of structural reforms. What are we doing, for instance, to diversify this economy? Every time we keep talking about diversification. What, as in, is just like, a political, mantra. Everybody wants to die. What are we diversifying? So people are saying restructuring, especially, trying to release some responsibilities that are with the, assigned to the federal government in the Constitution to states. But the thing is, how do you restructure? Is the federal government willing to let the states have this power? And again, the states themselves, with the little that they have mismanaged, how are you sure? How do you guarantee that when they are given this power, they will do well? Look at what is happening. If not for Governor Wike that exposed some South-South governors that they received, no state government, Niger Delta state government received less than 100 billion, and none of them can account for these monies. So that's the thing. Then you talk of economic reforms. Economic reforms, let me just round up because I say economic reforms that will address other factors that are driving poverty. Inflation. If inflation is increasing and your salary is not increasing, prices are increasing, there's a problem. What are you doing to address inflation? Look at what is happening with the dollar. If the price of dollar is increasing and you are not producing anything, somebody is talking about moving from consumption to production. And we don't understand that that's a very key issue. And, since you don't produce majority of what you consume, the exchange rate will bite. What is happening to inflation, unemployment? Look at our population growth rate at about 2.7%. Your population is growing more than the GDP, that is the economic activity. So there's something wrong. Something needs to be done, especially in population policy in the country.
Yeah, that's the next question I even want to ask when it comes to population. Now, I'm talking about population because some school of thought or research I read was actually pointing at the increasing growth in our population. They're saying that the growth is supposed to be like a blessing to us as a nation, but it seems that it's one of the things that is aggravating poverty in the country. So what's your thought on that?
Thank you very much. The growth is not aggravating poverty in the country at all. The problem with the country is that it's bad leadership, it's bad management. It's not about population growth. If we talk about population, after all, how many are we? We have projected that we are about 200 million, and who is sure that we are up to that? So
they don't care about the data.
A
political candidate said the other day, "Na statistics will go chop." So when you don't know the number of persons, or you are not interested in how those people go, so okay, please continue.
So let's say that we're 200 million, but look at a country like China. China is about 1.4 billion.
Yeah. India too, they're over 1 billion.
India is about 1.2 billion. That is their figures. You get to, I think, Pakistan, the same thing, up to 800 million and so on. So our population is not the issue. China is doing well. It's one of the best economies in the world today.
If not the best.
If not the best. India is there. So it's not our population. Yeah. Having said that, there are certain other things I want to let us know. What we are doing in this country is that there is planlessness. All the things we are doing is not well planned. The poverty alleviation we were talking about, the feeding of school children, giving paltry 5,000 to traders and all that.
Empower.
What does it translate to? It doesn't translate to anything at all. So if government wants to do something, they should come out and do something. And there is this small businesses that drives the business. Both the federal government and state government must take them very seriously. There should be tax holiday for them. They don't tax them at all. Instead, you encourage them. Look at bread industries. Like today, the poor man cannot eat bread again. Because bread is costing up to 1,000 naira a loaf, some 800 naira, and they are, things that were bought at about 200 naira before and 250. So these people should be encouraged. That floor, if where possible, the federal government should subsidize this, even the state government, so that the production of this bread the cost should be low, because it is a staple food for everybody in the country. So these are the areas we'll be looking at. Some of these small and medium scale industries, we have to know how to manage them. because they drive the economy. Again, there is this other issue, this other problem we're having in this country. Sometimes you see policies that they make policy and say, for instance, the issue of agriculture, that it must be made in Nigeria rice, it must be made in Nigeria this and that. Now we have gone to produce a rice, we are producing it. The cost of a bag of rice in Nigeria now has gone up to 38,000 naira.
45,000.
Okay.
We are going back.
45,000. But a good management, a good manager, a good government, we look at that. There is what we call in international business, competitive advantage. In a competitive advantage, if Nigeria is producing rice and maybe Dubai is producing it, or Malaysia, and the cost of Malaysia, if you import from Malaysia, the cost from importing from Malaysia, it will be far cheaper than that produced in Nigeria. What you will do, even to save the economy, and is to go and buy from Malaysia. Because if you buy from Malaysia, the price will come down.
So how do we move from consumption to production?
No. In whatever thing you do, production to consumption must not be that you are producing everything. No. There are certain things you will produce. There are certain things that must come home. Because now
so you feel that we cannot produce enough rice that can feed us as a nation?
We are producing now, but you see the cost.
I think what happened actually now is because of the flooding that affected some of the rice farms in the country.
We bought rice in Nigeria last year now. We did it. Was it cheap?
Compare with the price that we have now, that's what I'm saying.
The price that we have now, flooding might contribute to it. But I'm telling you that there are some other things that flooding did not affect, and they are going up. But what is important is that you don't, in management, that competitive advantage is something you cannot overlook. As far as the cost of your production in your country is high or higher than the person that has competitive advantage over you, what you should do is to buy from there over time until you keep planning your own. After planning your own, you can come to where your own, the production of your own has come down. But for the economy, for the people not to die in one day, that competitive advantage must apply. So that is that. There are some other issues in the country. For instance, we have the issue of religious people and all that. I want to chip it in that the money they are making so much money buying private jets and doing all that doing all that. These people the government should look at what they are doing and be picking some money from what they are getting. You don't leave them to just be picking the whole money. Picking it, they go and buy private jets. They build the best of auditorium everywhere, and they're moving about to the extent that some of them are spraying money and uncontrolled. Then the issue of this infrastructure development, at electricity supply, and let me use EEC around here. You see the way they supply light, the way they give us light. See the bill they are giving to people. A unit of somebody living in a unit of a house now pays as high as 20-something thousand naira a month, when the person's salary is about 30,000 or less than, or 20,000, and the person is compelled to pay 21,000, 50,000 in that apartment, and we say that we are running a government. Nobody is talking, So there are certain things we must look into. Look at our petroleum products. To buy fuel now, the dog has talked about it. He bought 240. But in many places they're selling 250. Do you know that the IPMAN, Independent Petroleum Marketers Association of Nigeria, I think their vice chairman was talking on the other day at Channels Television. And they say that they get this fuel as low as 145 naira per liter from the NNPC depot. You know, but before it comes now to the final consumers, it has gone up to 240 naira per liter. So where is this thing from? Government is not checking anybody. Nobody is checking anybody. So people do whatever they want to do. To the extent our poverty situation is suffering, and the final consumer, the big people, it doesn't matter to them. They don't pay for it. It is the people consuming. So I think should certainly do something. So
it all boils down to the government, the leadership.
It's leadership. And the individuals, some like the ASU, you know, in the universities, they are striking. Sometimes people should try to tell the government that what you are doing is not in order. Not by maybe you know, being going about the street, but you tell them maybe by way of strike. And so on. Okay. You know, some other issues like the little Okada, little Barrow, and all this and all that. These are the people that you leave them so that the suffering of the common man will be you know, ameliorated. Because once you add one couple to them, they will do it times 3.
All right. All right, talking about leadership issues, now do we break it down to states? Because from that report, we saw that there are states that are worst hit when it comes to poverty, especially the up north. A state like Sokoto, they say that they have about 90% of their citizens living in extreme poverty. Now, what actually is the problem there? Because I know that there are also other states that are not as worse as those states up north. What are the problems there? And then how do we stem the tide?
Well, I think it was that. I think they said that report said something like, I think 65% of the challenge as concerning multidimensional poverty is located in the north, and it's not far-fetched.
Let's know who is here. Hello, good morning. Hello. Good morning.
Hello.
Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Yeah, good morning. Good morning. Hello, good morning. Good morning.
We can hear you.
Yes.
Hello?
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Reduce the volume on your TV set.
On the television. Okay?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. Okay. Please, blow it down, please, for me. Please, about fuel price and kerosene price. Okay, look at the kerosene. Formerly, it was 150, 100 naira per liter, 150 per liter. But right now, a liter of kerosene at everywhere now is 840 naira, 850 naira, which is very wrong. The poor people cannot even buy a kerosene to use to cook, which is very, very wrong. It's not good. I want government to look at those things we have in Nigeria. It's from this Nigeria. We have oil, it's from there we got all these things. I wonder why government will be there. You know, people will be there, the people that are ruling will be there, they won't use their time and check. How can kerosene, where people that cannot afford gas, will be paying 840, 850 per liter? What you buy, if you buy 5 liters, it will stay up to 2 weeks. It will just, finish. I think it's the air to bought. So I don't want to comment about all that. People that are talking there, they are talking well. It's very shameful to the Nigeria, to the people really not. It's very bad. I want them to look at this thing. Fuel, kerosene, and let your life to be better. That's what I want to contribute.
All right.
I don't want to, let me not go more than that.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much on that.
The frustration is very palpable. You can feel it.
The frustration.
So I'm just you were saying something before he called. You're talking about the up north?
Yeah.
Being the worst hit.
Yeah, it's been the worst hit, and it's not far-fetched. It still boils down to somehow leadership. The kind of leadership they've been having here are not leadership that we really want to encourage, some level of mass enlightenment. It is no surprise that it is there you have the highest number of illiteracy. And with illiteracy comes a lot of other challenges. So when you don't empower these people, with knowledge, skills that they can use to be relevant in the world of today. And again, another important thing is when somebody is not enlightened enough to know his right from his left, when you are not enlightened enough to know what is your right and what is not your, what you should be able to demand for, and not that somebody is doing you a favor. When you come, in a community, you have one big allergy, and everybody, comes there for one thing or the other. And again, you talk of, that same enlightenment, is also seen in the name of Amajiri, causing crime, being easy recruits to, joining all these bad things that are going on, insecurity, bandits, criminality, taking of hard drugs, and so on and so forth. And again, where you now have a conflict between religion and institution, where you say education is not good, this is not good, and people should not go to school. And I'm not saying that that reciting the Quran is bad, though. But when you continue, when you place too much emphasis on that and less on conventional education that will empower you, then that's a problem. So, and again, generally the corruption that cuts across the country is also prevalent there.
Yes.
So these issues make the North very peculiar. That is, as far back as what is his name, as the late Obafemi Awolowo was saying then that one of the reasons he lost was, which election was that? 1970 something election, I can't remember the particular year. Was that why he lost in the North, especially, was because those people, were educationally backward. That it took him to his campaign in the North seriously before the then Sadana Sokoto, Ahmadu Bello had to see the need to campaign, because then he wasn't even campaigning.
All right. We really don't have time again. We can go on and on with all these issues and factors.
Yeah.
But then again, now the question is, we know that next year is a critical year for us right here in Nigeria, knowing fully well that we are heading for the polls, the election and all that. So what advice will you give to the politicians on the priority sectors, because we are now looking at how we can unlock the shared prosperity. So where do you advise them to look inwards to, so that we can see how we can end this poverty or reduce it to the barest minimum?
Yeah, so we will end it. Thank you very much. Yeah, the politicians that are coming in, I will advise them, to take what has happened over the years, to know that Nigeria needs change. Even if you have money and you are feeding the whole of your community, at a time you'll be feeling it. So politicians should know that when they get there, I advocate for technological advancement, because the world is technologically driven. That is by way of they should allow people to get educated, especially along the line of technology. Because once you do this, when you get on with technology, you see that the poverty will just fizzle out. Like what happened in China. China is not what they are because they are producing rice. No, it is not. They have the population to do that, or because they are producing yam. But because of their technology, and the China is everywhere in the world now, including this Oka where we are now. We have over 200 Chinese in Oka with their different hospitals and some other issues. So it is a war driven by technology. So the technological growth, and people must be employed. The small scale businesses must be must have a relief because they are the backbone of the economy.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Well, on that note, we want to say a very big thank you to you for joining us today, for being here with us this morning.
Thank you very much, our viewers.
And also to you, Chukwunonso Ekesi. Thank you so much for being part of the show. Well, that's it on the show this morning. Poverty trap in Nigeria. My name is Anambra. Let's see you again tomorrow. Bye.